Korea in those days, the whole northern chunk of South Korea, big old 50-mile wide chunk of northern South Korea, was an area called P518, a prohibited area. And you could only fly in there unless you're under FAC control. We were FACs, forward air controllers. So you could not fly in P518 unless you're under FAC control. We were the FACs. We could fly up there all we wanted. And we did. Mm-hmm. You know, and it was, I mean, the Army would shoot artillery shells. You'd be flying along and the hill next to you start blowing up. And the North Koreans would lock you up with their surface-to-air missiles.
Right.
Yes. We didn't have call signs.
Oh, really?
Oh, no. I find this call sign stuff just weird as hell to me. It's just, my call sign was whatever's on the scheduling board that morning.
I thought that came from way back.
Well, the Navy always had them.
Okay.
But we didn't have them. Lots of power, big cargo bay in the back. We carried, most of the time, we carried 2.75-inch rockets, usually with woolly peat, white phosphorus, you know, smoking rockets. But we dropped bombs in Korea, the little practice bombs. And it had 4 M60 machine guns in the sponsons, you know, just like the machine guns the Army guys carry, 7.62, 500 rounds of ammo each. And they were hilarious because, especially if you had all four loaded, you'd arm, because you could shoot one sponson at a time, but you'd arm them both up. You'd have 4 different tracer rounds all going in 4 different directions. I go, tower, this is such and such. I'm 15,000 feet over the field and my engine's quit. And tower goes, can you hold? I go, I'm an F-16 and my engine quit. I am coming down. They go, okay.
Hello, this is Jimbo from the YouTube channel Jimbo, South Dakota, and this is the Hog House Chronicles podcast. And today I have a friend of a friend who I just met the other day, but I've had him on the interview list for about a year. A friend of mine, Emily Plucker, introduced me to Tim the other day at their daughter's graduation. And this is Tim Plaehn, yes. And he is a Cold War fighter vet, and there's 2 different airplanes he flew. And we're going to get into all that stuff, but first I want to welcome you to the Hog House. Tim, this is your first time.
Yes, it is, Jim. And thanks for the invite. This is exciting stuff for me.
Yeah, well, yeah, I appreciate that. And so we'll just get started like we do with all of them. You can just say as much as you want to on where you were raised, how you were raised, family, and then we'll just get right into after that how you got into the military.
Yeah, well, I'm a small town Iowa kid. Just east of here. In fact, when I was out in my trailer a couple of weeks ago, I spent most of my childhood in Algona, Iowa. Okay. Which is straight down Highway 18, about 150 miles. And drove through the old town, just went by the old house. The house is still there. So, but then my dad got transferred just before my sophomore year in high school to a small town in Minnesota, Spring Valley, Minnesota. So I finished high school there. And, about the end of my junior year, middle of my junior year, my dad, I was a smart kid. I was a really smart kid. My dad goes, we have no way to pay for you to go to college. We got to figure something out. And the previous summer, we had driven by the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, you know, sitting up on the side of the mountain there, if you've seen it up there. It's a pretty place. Yep. I go, what about a military academy? And my dad goes, you figure it out. So I did all the paperwork. I did all the application stuff to get in the academy. My dad did get me the interview with our local congressman, which is what got me in, because you have to be nominated by a congressman or senator. Right. And I was nominated by Walter Mondale and Hubert Humphrey, our senators. They both, but those guys just put me in their top 10 list. My congressman, Al Quee at the time, who was governor of Minnesota later, he made me number 1. So they had to take me if I qualified. So that's how I got into the Air Force Academy.
And you met with him and he interviewed you? And that's why he did that?
Yeah, my dad was able to set up an interview with him, and you know, and I went through all the application processes. And first time I ever flew on an airplane, my dad took me to Minneapolis, and I got on an airplane and got off the airplane in Colorado Springs and got on the bus, and up to the Air Force Academy, and they shaved our heads and gave us uniforms and made us march and run and say, "Sir, yes, sir," for the next 8 weeks. Before.
And with your research, you knew that was kind of a pilot engineer type school?
Yeah, it was an engineering school. I wanted to be an engineer.
Okay.
Coming out of high school. I wanted to be an engineer.
What type?
I didn't care. Didn't know enough about anything.
Sure.
I had a math brain, so I figured engineering would be good. Then actually, when I got to the Air Force Academy, I found out I could go to pilot training. They go, "You get to go fly jets." And I go, "I'm going to be a math major," because those guys do no homework. So I was a math major in college. So I was a math major in college. Air Force Academy is fun. Great friends. We were the last all-male class of 1979.
Okay.
The first women came in with a class of 80. And so we were a little notorious. We wanted our class motto to be "last class with balls," which lasted for about 48 hours before the generals squashed it.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Got to have a little fun
I
first.
had a lot of classmates that got up in arms about it, and interesting times. But in those days, everybody that was medically qualified out of the academy got to go to pilot training if you wanted to. So we graduated 800 guys, and probably 600 of us went to pilot training.
Mm-hmm.
Now they graduate 11 or 1,200, and 200 go to pilot training.
Right.
It's just different worlds. So we all went to pilot training. I went to Williams Air Force Base outside of Chandler, Arizona, outside of Phoenix. Bunch of classmates from the academy in the class. Took to flying right off the bat. Just my first instructor pilot in a T-37, he was a young guy just come out of F-4s. They sent him to be a T-37 instructor pilot. And nice guy. We had a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran into him a couple of years later, and he goes, "I'm so pissed at you." I go, "Why? You spoiled me. You were the easiest student I ever had."
Yeah, I took to it pretty good then. Huh?
Yeah. And so we did T-37s for half the year, and then T-38s. And then in the T-38s is when you started competing for what you're going to get coming out of pilot training.
Did you have a preference?
I wanted F-16s.
16s.
Yeah. My class was the first class to get F-16s out of pilot training. My pilot training class. Mm-hmm. So first thing you had to be, they differentiated between you were fighter qualified or you weren't fighter qualified. You were going to go fight bombers or cargo airplanes or something. Mm-hmm. And then, the fighter qualified things, it kind of came down to, I had some good guys flying airplanes in my class. We got 3 F-16s, 2 F-15s, a couple of A-10s, and I screwed up.
What happened?
The biggest ride is your formation check ride in T-38s. You go up with another student. You take turns being the lead and the wingman, and I flew a perfect bloody ride with the IP with the check pilot in the backseat. Just nailed it. And flying back to the base, I dialed in the wrong TACAN station.
Oh no!
So I got off navigation by about 10 miles, and I busted the ride. I took the formation check ride a couple of days later and passed it fine, but I flew the perfect ride. I would have been one of those guys. I would have been right up there with the guys that got the F-16s and F-15s.
He didn't expect you to bail a basic airmanship thing.
Yeah, well,
the pressure was off. You were heading back to base.
He just had to bust me. I mean, obviously, I'd screwed up, and he had to bust me. So, forward air controllers, OV-10s and O-2s, required fighter qualified coming out of pilot training. So I got an OV-10 to Osan, Korea. Was my first assignment. Mm-hmm. And out of there, we went to Holloman Air Force Base for 4 weeks. And then the OV-10 training was at Patrick Air Force Base in Cocoa Beach for 8 weeks. Then spent a year in Korea flying OV-10s. And the OV-10 is a wonderful, wonderful airplane. So much fun. So crazy nuts airplane. You could do so many things with it. And
you talking more technological or flying aspect?
Just flying with it. The way it was, the aerodynamics of the airplane. I don't know if you've ever seen one. Twin turboprop with 2 booms behind the engines that go to the high tail. So there's a lot of aerodynamic thing because like 40% of your thrust or your lift came from the props blowing over the wings. And the thrust also blew across your vertical stabilizers, your rudders. So you could be going 0, but if you had thrust on, you could hit the rudder and your plane go, and lots of power, big cargo bay in the back. We carried, most of the time we carried 2.75 inch rockets, usually with Willie Pete, white phosphorus, smoking rockets. But we dropped bombs in Korea, the little practice bombs, and it had 4 M60 machine guns in the sponsons, just like the machine guns the Army guys carry, 7.62, 500 rounds of ammo each. And they were hilarious because, especially if you had all four loaded, you'd arm, because you could shoot one sponson at a time, but you'd arm them both up. You'd have 4 different tracer rounds all going in 4 different directions.
Wow.
They were not bore sighted. But flying in Korea was interesting because you showed the Korea, it was a 1-year unaccompanied tour. I was married at the time, and she had to stay back in the States. And we lived in like dormitories. We had all little rooms. And so we spent all our time with the guys and at the squadron. And Korea was this is 1981. Korea was still pretty much on a war footing. It's not the modern Korea it is now.
Right.
But it was so interesting because when you were the new guy, you were the green bean. And the previous green bean's job was to teach you the ropes, including how to get drunk down in the Ville. But yeah, so the squadron was, I don't know, must 25 of us. Just a giant pile of lieutenants, hair on fire, first assignments, a couple crusty captains that screwed up somewhere, and a squadron commander, lieutenant colonel, and a major ops officer. And we went flying every day. We'd fly 2-hour flights and you'd have 30 minutes of range time somewhere. So you had an hour and a half. And Korea in those days, the whole northern chunk of South Korea, big old 50-mile wide chunk of northern South Korea, was an area called P518, a prohibited area. And you could only fly in there unless you're under FAC control. We were FACs, forward air controllers. So you could not fly in P518 unless you're under FAC control. We were the FACs. We could fly up there all we wanted, and we did. And it was, the Army would shoot artillery shells. You'd be flying along, and the hill next to you start blowing up, and the North Koreans would lock you up with their surface-to-air missiles.
Right.
Yes, because we had a radar warning receiver, and you'd see they had SA2s and just old stuff, but you'd see the little 2 and suddenly beep, 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 the thing would go off, and you go. It wasn't supposed to work to be able to hit you if you're below 1,000 feet. But if you were at 1,000 feet, you cut that in half. You got low just in case they launched one off at you. So it was a really fun year of just flying with a bunch of guys. We'd go to Japan. We'd go to Yokota, Japan on cross countries and buy stereo gear. That's when stereo gear was these big chunks of stuff. You had 4-foot tall speakers. And the OV-10 had a big cargo bay in the back. So we'd go out to the electronics stores and fill up a couple OV-10s full of stereo gear and come back. We did, in the Philippines at Clark Air Base, they had what was called Cope Thunder. It was the South Asia equivalent to Red Flag, the big, military war games. It flew Cope Thunder. I was trying to remember this the other day, 2 or 3 times. So we'd fly the airplanes down there, which was interesting in itself because there was one leg between Okinawa and Clark where we really didn't have enough range to make it. So we'd stop on some little stupid island somewhere and see if we could get gas with this airplane. But Cope Thunder was just a riot. Live weapons all the time out on the range, and one thing, and pretty girls at night out in the Ville, and it was a good time. Couple stories from Cope Thunders. One is OV-10 had 2 seats, but we flew single seat all the time. Back seat was, when I was an instructor, I was back there a lot, but we flew single seat all the time. And this C-130 flight surgeon came down and goes, "I'm a flight surgeon. I'm qualified to fly. I want to ride in the back seat." And I go, "Okay." So we're out for 2 hours, just up and down and pulling G's and right side up and right side down and shooting rockets and, craziness. Because it was 2 hours of crazy, violent flying. And we got back on on the ramp. And the guy just kind of slithered out of the back seat onto the grass.
He wasn't expecting quite that out of that airplane.
He didn't realize that was going to happen. And my other Cope Thunder story, there was this shopkeeper there, a cute gal, and flirting with her every night. And she was keeping herself. She wasn't a hooker. She wasn't putting out. She wasn't doing anything like that. But she was fun. We had a lot of fun together and go out for drinks and stuff. And 3-4 years later, I did cross country in the Eglin Air Force Base. It was at the Officers Club. And I'm sitting there having a drink, and guess who comes up to me? It's Donna. She'd caught herself a major. So I thought that was pretty fun. So spent a year in Korea. Then I went back to Patrick Air Force Base as an instructor because I'd be in the OV-10 for 3 years. So I was an instructor in the OV-10 for 2 years at Patrick Air Force Base, which taught me a lot about flying because I was a pretty natural flyer. But then when you got to start teaching somebody, you have to start thinking about what you do. What do you do with your hands? Where do you put the airplane? You know, what kind of references can I tell these guys so they can get better at flying? The OV-10. And turns out I was pretty good at that too. By my last year there, if we had any, there was an 8-week course. And went from first couple of rides, just basic flying maneuvers with an OV-10, to their check ride would be, as a forward air controller, they would have to control a flight of fighters. We get A-7s in and F-4s in and go out to the bombing range in the middle of Florida. And I'd be like the ground commander in the back seat going, this is, Army guy, whatever, and telling him where the targets were and stuff. And he would have to direct the fighters, shoot his rockets to mark the targets and direct the fighters to drop their bombs where they're supposed to go. Pretty intense work, actually, for stuff. But my last year I was there, anytime we had a student that was in danger of not getting through the course, he flew his last 5 rides with me.
Yep.
And they all passed.
Good. Yeah, I've heard that on many subjects that if you have to instruct or teach something, you really learn so much yourself. So you got it figured out how to pass on the knowledge. Yeah,
and I spent a lot. I was qualified instructor pilot in the F-16 for a lot of the time, and we'll get to that.
Sure.
So out of there, I got my F-16 to Nellis Air Force Base. I could have gotten anything. So just whims of the Air Force. I get to go fly F-16s. Quick, short thing. Air Force in those days had what they called fighter lead-in at, Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico. And fighter lead-in, they had T-38s with bomb racks and gun sights on them. So you'd go out there and you got to practice air-to-air stuff. And you got to drop bombs off the T-38. And, well, actually 2 things. One thing, I've been dropping bombs for 3 years. And I was dumb bombing, where you go into your book and you go, okay, you get dive angle, airspeed, release angle above the ground, adjust, and this is my mill setting, and then you have to dive and hit the dive angle, airspeed, and, altitude above the ground, adjusted for wind, and have your pipper on the target adjusted for winds. And it can be done, actually. I did it a lot. But so I'd been doing that for 3 years. So I go to Holloman, they give me a T-38 with this rack of 6 blue bombs on the bottom of it. I was just killing it. I had an instructor pilot from another squadron come hop in my back seat. He goes, I've been hearing about you. I want to see what you're doing. So that was pretty fun. The other thing was the OV-10, turboprops. These things are out there going wah 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 wah. All that. So you learned how to sync your props. You start out by you just look at the RPM gauge and you match the RPMs, and it goes ooh. It's nothing worse. You have a guy in the front seat that won't sync his props. Right. It just made me nuts. But after a while, your brain just did it. You never had your brain as an OV-10 pilot. If my brain would just sync the props. It would move the throttles wherever they had to go to make the props synced up, so I wouldn't have wah, 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 wah in my head. And I'm on this, one of my first rides in the T-38 at Holloman. We're flying, and my instructor goes, what the f*** are you doing with the throttles? I looked down and the throttles were 3 inches apart.
Right.
My brain had synced the turbojets in the T-38. I couldn't hear it, but my brain did.
Yeah.
So I didn't do that again. And then F-16 school at Luke Air Force Base in Arizona. And then 3.5 years of flying F-16s at Nellis, which was a wonderful place to fly because Red Flag is there, the Thunderbirds are there, Fighter Weapons School is there. We got to fly every Red Flag. You know, fighter pilots around the world go to Red Flag once a year.
Yeah.
We flew every one. Fighter Weapons School uses for dummies. You know, you said when we were talking the other day, you were talking about 12v4 against. Yeah, at the Fighter Weapons School.
Against the 15s.
Yeah, against the 15. We in my day we went 4v2 against them.
Yeah, that was my first 2 out of 3 rides I had in the back seat of the F-16, and yeah, it was pretty amazing. But going 12v4, I think there was 4 F-18s. I don't know if they were all Navy. They might have been all Navy, and then us 4 F-16s out of South Dakota against 4 of the 15s at the weapons school.
Yeah.
And that was, and I'd gotten so sick on the first one, I told you, because, you know, the plane broke for the first go. I wasn't ready for the second go, but the pilots came in and said, "Where were you at the brief?" So I threw my stuff on and went, but like I told you, I just finished a microwave breakfast sandwich and a Mountain Dew.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. The worst 2 things you could have before flying. And I wasn't at the brief, so I didn't know what was going on and stuff. So sick, I said I'd never go again. But a short story, after the brief, I didn't even go in a flight suit. I went in just my regular camis, and at the end of the brief, I just said, "Well, I told you I wasn't going, but I was here at the brief," and they put me up against the wall, and they're like, "We don't care if you puke your guts out. Nobody gets to be a passenger on a 12v4 ride down here." And I went. It was great. Saw even when we got pseudo killed and had to go out over the desert lake bed, I saw wild horses running around out there, and we were low level. Very cool. Very cool ride. So.
Yeah, I told some friends that story this week, and all they wanted to know is who won.
You know, I'd have to think about it for a while. I thought I won because I didn't puke. That's the first thing, you know.
Yeah, I mean, because, early model F-16s, I flew the earliest of the F-16s, F-16A model, F-16A small tails, which were the first couple hundreds. Mm-hmm. Well, excuse me. They discovered that there was a chance for it to go out of control. They call it'd go into some sort of deep stall. Never heard of anybody doing it. But after the first couple hundred F-16s, they started putting bigger vertical stabilizers on them, or horizontal stabilizers on them. Mm-hmm. You can tell them because the angle's cut off. The angle of the stabilizer is cut off at an angle so that it doesn't drag on the runway when you're landing and taking off. Landing, particularly. So we were small tails, the very first ones. Actually, my first ride first solo was in tail number 004.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'd heard that the very first 16s that came out, that the stick was pressure sensitive but didn't move, but that proved to be too difficult to fly, so they put about a 1/4 inch of actual movement in the stick.
It had a little movement in it.
So the ones you flew had a little bit of movement. So I wonder if that was in the prototype.
Yeah, I think
R&R, R&D.
Yeah, I think R&D. Yeah, because I remember hearing those stories too. It moved a little bit. I mean, flying it was great. You've been in that thing. It's like putting a glove on. Mm-hmm. You get holes. Your feet go in. The throttle's up over here, the sticks under here. You're kind of tucked all in there, and and you got that one-piece canopy on top of you where you can see everything.
I had a pilot that emceed my retirement, and he is right now in his second season of being the F-16 demo pilot for the Air Force.
Oh, good for him.
Down at Shaw. But he was telling a story on, I don't know if it was, I did 2 podcasts with him. I don't remember if it was mine or another one I watched, but he said that, that he just walked out the airplane and you just felt like you forgot something because you're so far up there, full bubble, no rails, and everything's behind you. that it was, you're just out there, and it was just a tremendous feeling. And the way he described it was a lot better than I did.
So much power, so much maneuverability, computer limited you to 5Gs, which was 9Gs, sorry, 25 degrees angle of attack, so if you need a pull, you just pull. Can't over-G it, so you can black out. I mean, I do that in dogfights all the time. I go, okay, if I go right over there, he's going to show up in front of me. So I'd roll and pull, and I'd just pull. Vision goes maybe down to a little bright spot, maybe just down to a bit of gray, and that's all you got. But I knew I'd just go 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, and I'd let up on the G's, and he'd be right out in front of me. But that took a little experience to figure that one out. And we were 80% air to ground, 20% air to air. This is Cold War. Our job was to go bomb the Russians if they ever invaded Eastern Europe. That's, I mean, that was our job. So our primary flight tactic, we flew low-level approaches, 100 to 300 feet above the ground, to pop-up attacks. If you've watched Top Gun Maverick, when he does his pop-up attack, did those every day. Didn't pop up quite that high and didn't pull 82 zillion Gs coming out the other side. But we did those every day. And we'd go as a 4-ship. We're like a 1 by 2 mile 4-ship. And just running through the desert, low altitude, and there was enough neat bombing stuff in the F-16. As a leader, I'd do the direct bomb on my number 2 and do what's called dive toss, where you could put the pipper on the target and it'd give him a pull line, and he'd pull, and it'd let the bombs go. And then 3 and 4 do the same thing. But a lot of fun. But the best part, when you drop, we did Mark 82s, 500-pound bomb. We didn't have any smart weapons. We had smart pilots. That's one of my lines. I got a million of them. But we had smart pilots. But you drop the bombs, and then you had to pull up the frag pattern, the Mark 82, and Mark 84s too, the big 2,000 pounders, was about 2,500 feet above the ground. So you had to pull up above that. And then what you'd do is you'd roll over, pull your nose down, slam it in a full burner. So you're like 20, 25 degrees nose down, upside down. The burner's going wham. You remember how the burner feels in that thing. The stage is kicking. It's boom, boom, boom. And you're upside down, and you're ripping around upside down. And you're looking around and go, where are all my wingmen? You're making sure they're all coming out the same. And we'd come out of that thing 1 by 2 miles going the speed of heat then, because the bombs were gone. Had a 550 knot limit carrying weapons. And we did low levels at 480. Then from the initial point, IP to target, the last leg, we'd do that at 540. And that was ground speed, depending on your altitude, somewhere around 500 knots. But once you got rid of the bombs, you could go a lot faster. A lot faster. And we did. And so that was our main mission. I also, I told you this, and we were a nuke qualified wing. We would go to war. If we went to war, we'd go to a place, Bentwaters, England, the air base. And each one of the squadrons, we had 3 squadrons in the wing, would go there for a month every summer. I spent a month there flying, a lot of fun. But there was that nuke stuff. You'd have to go down in a top secret bunker for a week every year and study, and brief a board of colonels about all your procedures. And it's all weird. Too good weird nuke stuff. If you got sent to drop your bomb, because basically if it was war, you'd be out circling over the ocean waiting for the go or no go order.
Right.
You had to have enough gas to reach your target, deliver the weapon, and reach safe escape distance before you ran out of gas. But the part that got me, safe escape distance was designed that the tail of your aircraft did not heat up to more than 347 degrees Fahrenheit. I go, I'm 40 feet in front of the tail. How damn hot's it going to get in here? Nobody would tell me. I'm pretty sure I would have died. And the other one was, don't fly in the nuclear cloud. But if you have to fly in the nuclear cloud, don't fly into the red part. I go, you ever been in a cloud? Once you're in there, you can't see anything.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to tell.
Yeah, it was just all weird stuff. But, did that stuff once a year. That's all. When we do surges, we do surges once a quarter. We do them Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because you'd fly 3 rides a day. We'd turn every jet, every pilot 3 times a day for 3 days. And the last ride on Sunday was we were going off to Nuke, Utah, or Arizona.
Yep, to end the war.
To end
the war.
That would wear you out. That would wear you out. That was a lot of flying.
Yeah, that is a lot.
Yeah. And the other thing I got to do, and I did it in both the OV-10 and the F-16, I was functional check flight pilot, which means when they did major maintenance on the aircraft, you'd have to go do an FCF flight on it.
Yep.
And when guys would run out of gas somewhere and lie about it, the colonel would send you out and go FCF that and bring it back, because guys would lie when they ran out of gas. Figured that one out. Got to the runway, barely. But
That's tight.
Yeah, but FCF flight was a hoot in the F-16, just a hoot. OV-10 was weird. The F-16 was a hoot. Because first thing, you had a completely clean jet. You know, you always flew with bomb racks and gas tanks and missiles and all that stuff on your airplane. But FCF completely, as God intended an F-16 to be, I got one. And you'd go out to the end of the runway and you'd full burner, you'd lift off and you just suck the gear up, stay just above the runway. You got 400 knots. And you just go straight up to 15,000 feet, roll upside down. Just the best ride.
And to my understanding, that's so just in case you did lose an engine or something because you're checking this airplane, that you were straight up above the
I did once.
the air, and then just were able to twirl down. And so that was true then? That was the deal?
Well, that's how it worked when my engine flamed out.
Yeah. The
one time I did that. Ended my Air Force career because I wouldn't write up my own medal. But yeah, I was up. When you get up there, when you rolled out, you'd go from full burner. It was in full burner, and you go all the way to idle, all the way back to full afterburner. And one day I had one went chitty chitty bang bang and quit. And that was probably the scariest thing I ever did flying.
I believe it.
Because L over D max and in F-16 is like 240 knots, and it's like 20 degrees nose down. So 1.5 full turns, I was on the ground. And the funny part is what happened, because there was a red flag launch waiting to take off, like 80 aircraft at the end of the runway waiting to take off.
During red flag.
Yeah, and I go, tower, this is such and such, and 15,000 feet over the field, and my engine's quit. And tower goes, can you hold? I go, I'm an F-16 and my engine quit. I am coming down. They go, okay.
I'm surprised they even scheduled an FCF right in the middle of a red flag.
Oh, there's stuff going on in Ellis all the time, But, so 1.5 full turns, and I'm just airspeed runway, airspeed runway, airspeed runway, and I got there and dropped the hook, took the cable at the end of the runway, and I was so pumped up. I was just beating on the inside of that canopy just to get the adrenaline out of myself. That was a wild one. The other fun part of the FCF is you had to do a Mach run. Get 40,000 feet level, and they had to go at least Mach 1.4. I was up one Saturday morning in this thing, and I got up to 1.82, Mach 1.82 in an F-16. 1,210 knots, 1,400 miles. I was hauling. And then Tim being Tim goes, I wonder how high this will go. I pulled the nose up 45 degrees, and we weren't supposed to fly above 50,000 feet without pressure suits.
Right.
Yeah, I chickened out at 65.
Wow.
I was still doing 1.5. It wasn't the same thing because the air gets thinner, your Mach gets weird, and I did see the Earth get round and the sky get dark.
That's nuts.
Yeah, so that was one of the fun things. Yeah, but FCFs, and like I said, I would, I did not get a fly across the pond. I didn't fly going to Bentwaters. I didn't get a fly coming back because I got a phone call. We need an FCF. Okay. So they put me on a commercial flight and sent me back somewhere. Because colonels like me. I was a single guy at the time. Oh, excuse me. And I always brought the jets home, which I guess that counted for something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, and it just so like in those days, and it's probably similar and even worse now, but you had a whole list of things you get checked out to do. When you show up in the squadron, you're like a wingman that can go drop bombs. that's it, period. And then you get checked out for air to air and, more advanced air to ground stuff and more advanced air to air stuff, and eventually upgrade to flight lead, and then you get to be a flight lead. I had everything. So, including FCF and one that shall not be named, but there was only 2 of us in the squadron that had either of those, 2 FCF pilots and 2 of the other thing. But it was neat for me because whenever there was like a extra demanding mission, like a big red flag mission, or, we're going up 4v2 against the F-15s, I was flight lead. Mm-hmm. If we did routine missions, I was always an instructor pilot. I'd instruct somebody else being flight lead, upgrading in flight lead. So. Mm-hmm.
One of the questions that I usually ask is, when did you feel the most adrenaline? So I'm wondering if the story you just told with the FCF, is that when you felt the most adrenaline?
Yeah, that was it. The fact that I got my ass on the ground without a motor.
Yeah. What kind of time frame was it from the time your engine quit till you had wheels on the ground? You think?
Probably 90 seconds.
90 seconds.
Never timed it, but like I said, it's 20 degrees nose down doing 240 knots. So
did it feel like time slowed down a little bit?
Oh, no.
Or not?
No, I never really got, the Templar distortion stuff. Mm-hmm. Just always stayed calm and cool. As far as I know,
You have to. I think that's part of becoming a pilot, is having that inside of you.
Yeah.
Especially a fighter pilot.
Yeah, and I always, and everything always worked, whatever stupid stuff I got myself, or in the OV-10 is mostly what the front seaters did. I had 2 students spin us, really weren't supposed to do spins in an OV-10, but they managed to figure out how to do it.
So what was the next time that you had the most adrenaline running?
I loved the low level to pop-up attacks. I loved flying those, just loved flying. First thing, we're 300 feet, allegedly. We had nothing in the airplane that told us how high we were above the ground. It's like, yeah, that looks like 300 feet. Mm-hmm. So that was, could be 100 feet, could be 50 feet. But it just, when you, being 300 feet above the ground, going 500 miles an hour, controlling 4 armed, powerful aircraft, it is a rush. It is a rush. And one kind of low level question, or it's like, out of Nellis, for the low levels into the bombing, they got giant bombing ranges up north of Las Vegas there. And almost all of our low levels, either we went out to the southwest and came in from the southwest part of the ranges, or would go out east and come in with the low levels. And one day I just had a 2-ship. This was me and a wingman, and they sent us up way up in northern Nevada. And we're coming down there. If you've driven across Nevada, it's like mountain range valley. So we're coming down one of these wide, empty valleys. And I really didn't realize how low I was until I flew in front of a pickup truck. This guy was like 50 feet right there, big face. I go, oops, we're a little low. Because it was just so flat. And then we just settled down into, going fast and going low. I always wondered I bet that guy told stories for years.
Yeah. Yeah, for the flying over water, you can get even more of that. Yeah. As far as just not being able to judge the distance quite as well for altitude.
Yeah. And, I've talked to classmates we were just so lucky to be able to fly the way we were. The F-16 was brand new. We were developing a lot of the tactics as we went along. We didn't have a lot of the safety features they have now, like, how high you are above the ground, or the data link stuff one of my things about modern fighter pilots, they don't fly close formation anymore. They don't fly close. They're all data linked to each other, so they don't have to. We joined up to close formation on every ride. If you had a 4-ship, you'd turn out and everybody join up on you, and you'd stay that way for a little while. But it's different world.
Things keep progressing. All the electronics have changed in that plane so much. Yeah. Glass cockpits, and as safety, I was a safety officer. I went to accident investigation school, and so I got to read all the safety reports. And one of the ones that really stuck in my head, the F-16 had
max airspeed limit of 800 knots indicated. You had all kinds. I mean, you have different airspeeds. You got indicated airspeed, which is, counting the molecules smashing into your airplane, and you got true airspeed, which is how fast you're going, and your Mach. But the F-16 was built to be a simple companion to the F-15, which was big and complicated and powerful. And so one of the things, if you look at previous supersonic fighters, they all had adjustable inlets. F-15 has it. The F-4 has the little doors. But the F-16, nothing, just a clean inlet going back in there up into the engine. So the 800 knot limit was set because what happens is when you're going supersonic, a shock wave starts building up in your inlet. And the faster you go, the further it gets back. And you don't want it touching your turbine because it's a shock wave.
Right.
So that was the 800 knots for. And then at safety school, accident investigation school, they told me that the Air Force builds a 15% margin of error into everything. So my brain goes, okay, 800 plus 15%, something like 920. I don't even think I ever got much over 600 knots indicated.
Yeah.
But there was a guy in Florida, as you were saying, out over the water. They figured he was going 1,080 when he pulled it out of afterburner and it blew up.
Wow.
He managed to eject, but he broke both his arms and both his legs and drowned. Mm-hmm. But 1,080 indicated.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to
that
do
airplane
any of
would
those.
just accelerate forever.
Yeah. With broken arms, you probably couldn't do any of the post-egress stuff.
No,
at
and
all.
that was before they had automated life preservers that would.
Yep.
Before that, I think they came along soon after that. Actually,
Yeah.
if you hit the water, they inflated.
Yeah. And you wanted your mask away from your face, or your connectors below water level anyway. Even though you're floating, you can float there and drown or suffocate. But
Yeah. I spent all my time flying over deserts, so didn't train much on that.
yeah.
Well, we did over Patrick, but we did. Patrick was fun. It's Cocoa Beach, Florida, just south of Cape Canaveral. Got to watch a ton of space shuttle launches, and actually one of our training areas was just north of the Cape, just north of the runway, and that's where we did early flights. Guys learn how to do loops and slow flight and all that kind of stuff in the airplane. And then we'd go do approaches on that runway, 3 miles long, like 500 feet wide runway. And we're coming down with our little OV-10. You could probably do 3 before you got to the end of the runway. But it was fun to fly out there. That was the only time I was ever been stationed on the East Coast.
Yeah. Well, and when I'm talking about equipment, I'll explain to you that my career field of 35 years in the Air Force it started with a shop called Aircrew Life Support. And in 2008, it changed to Aircrew Flight Equipment. So everything that fighter pilots wear, they pack parachutes, survival kits, help the Air Force SEER guys do survival training and stuff. So that's why I know a little bit about the equipment that he's talking about. So
and good stuff, yeah. Oxygen mask. Parachutes were built into the ejection seat, so you just had to wear a harness, which was nice.
Yep.
But, and the G suit, your favorite piece of equipment. The OV-10 could pull 6.5 Gs. And it actually had a G suit outlet, but we never did. We were too macho to put G suits on to only pull 6.5 Gs. And we flew with, it had oxygen on board, but we always flew with boom mics. You'd take your mask with you if you went cross country in case you had to go above 10,000 feet.
right.
I did one day. I was trying to get through a thunderstorm. I got up to 18,000 feet in a bloody OV-10. I was going nowhere, hanging by the prop, but I did get through that thunderstorm. Put my oxygen mask on. Oh, and the FCFs, the funniest part of the FCF, the OV-10, its max airspeed was 350 knots. And on the FCF, you'd climb up to 15,000 feet. So you took your mask along and put it on. And you'd go straight down to 350 knots. I was, what the heck is that for? To see if the wings stay on? I don't get it. But yes, it will go 350 going straight down.
I believe it. So progressing through your career?
Yeah, and like I said, when I landed the F-16 with the engine out, I didn't realize my first squadron commander in the 429th TFS in Nellis. And the wing was the 474th. His name is L.D. Johnson. Got shot down in Vietnam. Pretty much a legend in the F-16 community. Because he's a hell of a guy. He was wing commander at Kunsan at one point in time. He led a bunch of stuff in the Middle East, and I get to see LD maybe once a year because he's still got a house in Las Vegas and he's got a house out in Oklahoma. Uh-huh. And we were talking one day about, he goes, yeah, we're doing this big mission over, I think it was Iraq. And I go, I had this young lieutenant colonel that was certain he was going to lead the mission. I told him, hell no, I'm leading. But yeah, LD is a huge, huge legend in the F-16 community, at least my era of guys, and later after. So he was a great mentor but then we got this next squadron commander named Hugh, and he was a by-the-book officer. And I didn't really care much about being an officer. I was a pilot. I just wanted to fly every day. So he and I did not see eye to eye at all. And when I told him I was going to separate, because I was pretty sure my next assignment was not going to be a flying one. Might have been a misconception because it was just all in my head. I go, I think I'm going to separate. And Hugh goes, that's a good idea. And I go, well, thanks for the vote of confidence. I'm one of the best pilots in your squadron, but that's not what you care about.
Yeah, there's probably conversations that you guys had or little clues that you had where you knew you didn't want to sit behind a desk.
Yeah, well, I knew I wanted. Looking back many, many years later, and I don't know if this is true, I think I could have, Randolph Air Force Base in Austin, Texas, that's where all the personnel stuff was. And we'd go cross country there once in a while just to talk to the guy who was in charge of our career. But I believe that I could have talked myself into a pilot training instructor pilot job. Go to one of the pilot training bases and just be a permanent instructor pilot until I make major, get 20 years and get out of there. But because they could use somebody like me who could really instruct people, who could take problem children and teach them how to fly. And that is way in the bygones box, way in the bygones box. When I got out of the Air Force in late December of 1987, haven't touched a jet since. Just done other things, financial services stuff, sold trucks, I managed a commercial tire store. Went and lived in South America for 6 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we'll get into that kind of stuff. But yeah, when you got out, I was close to sitting at SEER school out at Fairchild. Yeah. Waiting to come back and help.
Did you go
SEER
through
guy.
that? Did you go?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Did that. SEER, the land survival, water survival, post egress. I never did do Arctic. One of my squadron commanders and I, we always talked about going to Arctic together. Basically, most people said that was the most fun survival school there was. Did you get a chance to go to that one?
No.
Probably not being based in
and
Nellis.
We called it SEER, but SEER. But
they'll correct nowadays. They'll like, it's not SEER.
But we did it between our freshman and sophomore year at the Air Force Academy.
Right.
Yeah.
So did you have your own, or did you go to Fairchild?
No, we did it at the Air Force Academy.
So they brought SEER instructors.
No, the upperclassmen were the SEER instructors.
Oh, okay.
The upperclassmen.
So they didn't do POW training or anything.
Yeah. I got molested by some guy while I was sitting in the box. Mm-hmm. 4x4 foot box with a one-legged stool. Spent 2 days in there. Yeah. Then we had like a POW camp for a day and a half, and then we went out into the woods. Mm-hmm. And it was probably the same thing. You had to go from checkpoint to checkpoint, and there was like aggressors looking for you. For us, there was aggressors. If you got points, if you got caught, you got points or negative. And if you got too many points, you had to do it again next summer. And it was me and Pickett and Parabeck because it was alphabetical. John Pickett, his daddy was a general, but he wasn't a very bright guy. And we let him lead one of the early days of out on the trek, and he got us completely freaking lost. We missed the checkpoint. We were miles away from where we were supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And I grew up in the woods hunting, and I could find my way around. So we took away his compass. We just took away his compass, and and it was John Parabeck too. And we took away his compass, and we just cheated our ass off for 4 days. don't travel at night. Okay, we're traveling at night.
Get back on track.
Get back on track. And we passed, but because no way I wanted to do that again.
So what were some of your most rewarding moments being in the Air Force?
For me, just the fact that, small town kid out of Iowa, Minnesota, didn't know nothing about nothing. And I ended up flying F-16s, never would have thought about it, until after I'd been at the Air Force Academy for a year. Just unbelievable that that's where I ended up. Mm-hmm. And it became such a huge, basis of what my life became. I hung on to that fighter pilot image. I still do.
Yeah, because there's people that they have that drive ever since they were in grade school and stuff, and then here, yours just happened.
Yeah, a lot of the guys are really driven. Their parents are in the military. My dad was an enlisted guy in the Navy.
Going to be my next question.
Yeah, my dad was an enlisted guy in the Navy in the early 50s, long before he met my mom and came along. He was a aircraft mechanic. Mm-hmm. Spent a tour on a carrier in the Mediterranean. And then he was a crew chief on a cargo airplane out of Norfolk. And he'd tell stories. Because as the crew chief, you got to go long out of Norfolk. And they went everywhere from Canada to Guantanamo Bay, up and down the coast. And he loved his Navy time. He really did love his Navy time. Because
cool.
My dad was a good storyteller. The last few years, we'd show up a bottle of whiskey. Jim Beam was the only thing he'd drink. I'd bring some nice bourbon. Go, what the hell's that? Go get some Beam.
Yep.
But my dad was the youngest of 10 children.
Wow.
And he had 5 much older brothers. So when World War II started, he was like 12 years old, and all 5 of his brothers enlisted. They left. And this is, again, small town Iowa. So he became a full-time farmhand as a 12-year-old. And he goes, I worked as a farmhand all summer and went to school, during the school year. And all his brothers went in the military. So he grew up in a hurry. And all his brothers came home.
That was going to be the next question as well.
He goes, they were all messed up a little bit, but they all went out. I remember all my uncles, they all had regular lives.
Battle through it.
Yeah. His father, my grandfather, which I never met him, he died fairly young. He was a gambler, and he owned a tavern in Rhinebeck, Iowa. And he liked to play cards. So my dad was like 10 years old. He had my dad be bartender in his tavern. My dad goes, they had a city cop, town constable. He'd come in to work the night shift. Town constable would come in and go, my grandfather's name was Henry. Hank, awful young-looking bartender you got there. My grandfather go, kid, give the man a beer.
Back in the day.
Yeah. So, my dad was full of good stories. He played basketball all the time. He goes, he always had a basketball when he was in the Navy. Anytime they would have games on the aircraft carrier, they'd go in the port, they'd go into the city and find basketball games.
Yeah.
He goes, we had 4 pilots that played college basketball. And my dad was the point guard. And they had a pretty good team.
Man. What's one or two of the most important things you learned in the Air Force?
Oh, I'm going to turn this around a little bit. To a great extent, it came really easy for me. To a great, great extent. What I didn't learn till many years later is to ask people for help.
Right.
Ask people for guidance. Ask people for advice. I always thought I knew it all. It messed me up a lot after I got out of the Air Force because I always thought I knew everything, and I didn't. And I messed up with some jobs and some life stuff. And I really, really wish I would have learned just to ask for advice. Probably that second squadron commander, if I just would have sat in front of his desk and go, Hugh, tell me what I need to do, instead of being my arrogant asshole, guy that never talks to anybody that's not in my flight guy.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories where the squadron commanders in general were really good about that in particular.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Talking
You would have
guys.
been. I mean, it took me many years. There's several opportunities in my life. I'm very successful now. What I do now, I'm very successful at. But I started this 10 years ago. I mean, I was in my late 50s when I finally got to a point of success, and I could have done it much earlier if I would have asked for help and got advice and listened. You know,
that's a good point. You know, the listening portion comes
the
along,
listening part,
not just hearing.
Yeah, I was working as a financial advisor, stockbroker for a bank in Denver. Neat little job, wanted it. And then one day I go out to John Elway Toyota. I just want to find out what selling cars was like. I was selling cars on Monday. And the general manager there was so sharp and had such a wonderful control of his business, from the selling side to the whole business. And if I would have had a half a brain, I would have spent 15 minutes a day just sitting in front of him and going, right, tell me what to do. Not Tim. Thought I knew it all. So, I mean, for me, it's, if, and I grew up in an era where, through the Air Force Academy, I didn't work very hard, got good grades, finished in the top 100 of my class without doing much. So it just, somewhere along the line, I should have gotten smacked in the face a little earlier. But
maybe your first smack was when you said you were going to get out, and your boss said, "Well, that sounds like a good idea."
Yeah, well, but I was so arrogant about what I wanted to do after that. I just didn't care.
About that.
No, and that was a mess for the next 15 years. So, that's. Anybody, if you know young people out, especially people that are really smart and talented and have things going for them, and I don't know how you knock it into their heads, make them watch this YouTube, make them watch this podcast, because my life would have been a lot different.
Yeah,
if I just would have been open to sitting down in front of people and going, talk to me, give me guidance, tell me what you think I should do. And then listening.
Yeah, and the general atmosphere socially has leaned towards that. That asking for help isn't being weak anymore.
Yeah.
And I think it wasn't said back then, but I think it was a general conception of, I'm a man, I'm strong, I know what I'm doing, I don't need any help.
Real men fly jets.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and, type A personalities, the whole bit.
And all the guys you hung out with in the fighter squadron were just like you.
Yep. And there are fighter pilot traditions that kind of egg that on as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, things have changed some through the years, and I've seen some changes in fighter pilots in with the last 30 years I was with fighter pilots. Now 32-ish, actually. But, yeah, that's... It's a personality type, yet everybody's still an individual. But I will just put the plug out there that the pilots that we have out here, just a great group of pilots, good family men, and of course we've had some ladies in the squadron as well. Just tons of quality people have gone through this squadron up here. I think you'd enjoy meeting them.
I would like to get out there and meet them and talk to them. Like I said, I got set up to have cocktails with one of the guys that flies out there. He just transitioned. He was a Marine F-18 pilot. He's a major, and got just transferred over to the squadron. And we had a really fun time talking to him. Really interesting.
In your F-16 days, did you guys have roll calls?
No.
Okay, so it was the party where they'd have the roll call and all that kind of stuff. Fighter pilot
party,
basically. Might have been called something different.
Yeah, we didn't really have parties. The beer machine was open every day when the last flight was down.
Yeah. Yes, and see, part of the deal here, not here, but in the Guard units all around, 30% of the pilots are full-time, 30, maybe 40 if you got an alert commitment, but then the rest are airline pilots. So they aren't all together.
Yeah.
Not even once a month to get all of them together. Of course, everybody's gone, or somebody's gone all the time. But I was just going to say they've had a couple roll calls in here.
Well, next time they do that, you call me.
Well,
Get me down here.
that's up to them to do the invites, So,
Well, you let me know, and I have at least one contact out there. So,
yeah, real fun. We've done two. Did you guys do any piano burns in the squadron?
we didn't have call signs.
Oh, really?
Oh no. I find this call sign stuff just weird as hell to me. It's just my call sign was whatever's on the scheduling board that morning.
I thought that came from way back.
Well, the Navy always had them.
Okay.
But we didn't have them.
Really?
We didn't. No. Our call sign was what we had. It was a few guys that have them just because they gave themselves one. But no, it wasn't a regular thing.
One of my good friends, it's in squadron here, retired.
Your call sign was 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Yeah. Yeah, a friend of mine that retired here, a real good friend of mine. But he was explaining to me about that when, and he started in A7s, came from an enlisted background. And I started asking him about roll calls and piano burns and all that kind of stuff. And he was letting me know that it really wasn't much of a deal here. Plus, if you were full-time Air Guard, I mean, you were here. You weren't in the Air Force going from base to base to base. And
changing assignments every 3 years.
And they were trying to, keep more of the fighter pilot traditions going as well. So some of that has come back a little bit. That's why they're doing the roll calls and the piano burns and
what's a piano burn?
There's multiple stories on it. The main one that I heard is, I don't remember if it was World War I or II, but it's like you said, after each day's flying in the war, they would go and basically have a roll call at the bar. But, there was a high attrition rate and stuff. So there was people, so they would salute and have a drink to the ones that didn't return. Yeah. Well, I don't remember if it was a British guy or what, but he was a piano player. And one day it was his turn not to come back. So all the group said, if he's not playing the piano, ain't nobody playing the piano. So they toasted him by carrying that thing outside and burning
it on fire.
So that's the one rendition I've heard. I'm sure you can Google it.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that's the true story, because it's a tribute to the flyer and the veteran and the ones that didn't come back. So we've burned 2 pianos here.
Yeah. The one time I got to talk to a World War II fighter pilot, he was Navy aircraft carrier guy. He goes, the only thing I remember is we never came back with any bullets. We fired them all. But yeah, we our thing, and again, we were in the squadron, so everybody's in the squadron every day. Friday afternoon was pilot meeting day. So generally the last flight got down a little earlier on Friday afternoon, and everybody grabbed a beer. We had a beer machine. It was like a soda machine. But you just pushed a button and you pulled out a beer and you put a mark in the book, and the junior lieutenant in the squadron's job was to go add up the marks each month and go collect money and fill up the beer machine. Right. But we'd go to the pilot meeting, and the squadron commander and give us whatever we talked about at pilot meeting, the safety stuff and what we did for the week and what's coming up. And halfway through the pilot meeting, we'd take a bathroom break and get another beer and continue the pilot meeting. And as soon as the pilot meeting was done, everybody went to the officers club. That was back in the day when the officers club were on fighter pilot bars. The officers club were full of fighter pilots.
Right.
And
which has its own set of traditions.
Yeah. And this was when the first Top Gun movie was out in Las Vegas. So the officers club was full of women that wanted to meet fighter pilots. It was fun. Patrick Air Force Base, because it's Cocoa Beach, a lot of retirees and stuff down there. So we just had a little bar in the back. We had a little bar, because up front there's a nice dining area and bar and full of retirees. And there's a little bar in the back by the pool, which was where we were every Friday. It got pretty well, a lot of gambling, a lot of guys playing dice games and stuff back there. We just drank and told stories. And there was no women looking for OV-10 pilots.
I wasn't going to say anything.
There weren't. But it was right next to the pool. And this was when Carter was president. And one night, the Secretary of Defense was there swimming in the pool. And one of the guys with a little too many beers in him goes charging out the door and going, "Where's that lame duck?" And everybody just grabbed him and dragged him back in and just held him down before he got himself in a world of hurt.
A few too many.
Yeah. Yeah. So OSAN, pilot training, the bar was they had a back bar at Willie. don't remember much because, boy, we were young and dumb. But Friday nights, Osan, because we were it was a unaccompanied tour, and you did everything on base. So we did all our meals at the Officers Club, and they had a pinball machine back by this, in the auditorium. This Kiss, remember the band Kiss?
Oh yeah,
It was the Kiss pinball machine. We had like 4 or 5 of us would go there and play pinball for a couple hours every night before dinner, and then on Fridays we'd run the Ville. The downtown, just outside the gate, was like 1 million bars. So we were just so silly. We had like 6 or 7 bars picked out with time on targets every 30 minutes between the bars, and we drank this stuff called Oscar, which was like this sparkling something. It came in 2 flavors, peachy and grapey, and I don't think there's much alcohol in it.
Yeah.
But they also had soju, which was their hard liquor, because. On your green bean run, when you were the green bean, you were the new guy. On your green bean run, the previous green bean, his job on your first, Ville run was to make sure you're okay, and either got home okay or got hooked up with a woman of the night, because the Korea at that time had a curfew from midnight to 4 a.m. Mm-hmm. Nobody on the street from midnight to 4 a.m. So all the girls would. $20. You can go home with her from midnight to 4 a.m. or whenever you got up. So you had to brief the guy if he decided. The guy who was, I was the previous green bean, so the green bean that I was helping out, he took advantage of it. And he goes, I remember what you told me, because I go, when you get up in the morning, just one rule, go uphill. If you keep going uphill, you'll get back to the gate. He was a captain, but then when it's your last days, you're the brown bean.
So were there any other countries that you went to when you were serving then?
No. Like I said, when we were flying there, we flew into Japan a lot, landed in Okinawa a few times, and then the Philippines. And then I wasn't stationed anywhere. We spent a month in Bentwaters, England, with pretty much the whole squadron. Mm-hmm. And there we'd fly every day. We'd take off, climb above the clouds, fly across the channel. Danish F-16s would come popping out of the clouds. It's pretty cool. These guys would just pop out of the clouds. And then we'd circle down and fly our usual stuff, low-level flight through Germany. Flying low-level in Germany is a challenge. First thing, clouds are always bloody low. Second thing, they got lots of hills. They've got windmills on top of hills. They got gliders flying everywhere. And they had a 450 knot speed limit, which was fine. I didn't really want to go that fast anyway. Right. But so we'd get a mission every day. And I remember there was a couple of times, these people, it was a headquarters somewhere in Germany, and they'd make the target their building. So you'd roll in with your 4-ship on this building, and there's like 100 people out in the lawn watching you.
Enjoying the show.
But and driving on the wrong side of the road. And there was a 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. I think all the pubs closed down at that point in time. But there was this hotel near the base that was owned by this retired British wing commander. And in the hotels, the bar could stay open for hotel guests as long as they wanted.
Sure.
Well, and he'd put up his blackout curtains too from World War II, so nobody knew there was anybody inside. We'd stay there till like late at night. And the problem is we always did it on Thursdays. And then we'd have to get up on Friday and go fly. Mm-hmm. But that was what we did in England. So, pretty basic, as far, I was in the Air Force 9 years, and, year in Korea, 2 years at Patrick Air Force Base, 3.5 years at Nellis. And there's a bunch of training stuff you do in between. Mm-hmm. Spent 10 weeks, I think, at safety school. That was down in San Bernardino, California, or there's 2 Air Force bases down there, right? Norton and right there in the Inland Empire. There wasn't one of them.
Yeah.
But
I did the Safety Investigation Board, some call it the Accident Investigation Board deal. I went through that too. I was a member for life support. We worked with the flight surgeon, but we were the only enlisted voting member of the boards, and I was on 2 of those.
How long did it take?
Our part of the school was only, I think
Oh, that
it was
was
only
the
a
school.
week.
Did you ever do an accident investigation
2
board?
of them.
Okay.
One down in New Mexico.
Okay.
We were training Dutch pilots down at Davis Monthan down there, and we had one G-Lock down there back mid-90s. And then my first out of 3 trips to Iraq, we lost a jet over there. So I was part of the interim board, which is the ones that handle things right away till you hand it off to the Safety Investigation Board. But we were way overseas there, and they were trying to get everything figured out. So basically, me and one of the pilots, we were both assigned to the interim board. And by the time we got out of there and handed it off to the Safety Investigation Board, we had most of the things done already.
Yeah.
But that was pretty rewarding doing those 2.
Yeah, because I'd gone to accident investigation school as a safety officer. So, part of the thing, if there was an accident investigation board, the leader of the board had to be somebody who'd gone to safety school.
Yep.
And they would always bring somebody in from an outside base.
Always.
But the one I did, guy up fighter weapons school, his F-16 quit and he jumped out. So, my accident investigation board, I stayed at Nellis. So in those days you had a colonel who's in charge and, could pound on people. And then me, who kind of ran things. And, we'd get all the people we needed. You'd get the maintenance guys. You'd get the guy from General Dynamics. You'd get the guy from whoever the engines did.
Well, they're always jumping through hoops to
but
help the board.
You had 30 days. You had 30 days. Because I see these things nowadays, it takes them a couple of years to figure it out. We had 30 days. To get the report, we worked every day for 30 days. And we figured it out.
Yeah, our ones I was on was a limit of 30 days as well. The 30-day report was the final that came out, unless there was a little studying going on.
Yeah, and there was you only made a certain number of reports. I think it was 17. But then we made 19, which the colonel and I each kept. I don't know where mine went. I should have that somewhere. It's this big, thick green thing. Somewhere in my house.
Yeah, it was pretty rewarding being on those. But, some people are on one where there's no fatalities, and then there's some where they are. Both of mine were fatalities.
Yeah, see, my one was not. The guy was able to, the engine quit. We figured out why, and bearing ring gave out because it had been poorly installed.
Yep.
But, fascinating, especially when you get the guys in from the manufacturers and stuff, because they're so smart.
Right. Yep. So you left the Air Force after 9 years in 87, you said?
Yeah.
All right. So what happened after? Well, what degree did you graduate with?
My major was math degree. But I had a BS, Bachelor of Science. My major was math. I mean, everybody at the academy in those days, almost everybody was an engineering degree. It was aeronautical engineering, astroengineering, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering. We didn't have a lot of choices, like they do now. They got bazillions of them.
So did you have inkling to follow those, or did you just go straight off into something else then?
I wanted to go into financial services. I wanted to be a financial advisor. Got stockbroker's license, certified financial planner. I did all of that. First job I got was with a life insurance company, which I found out, life insurance is more about selling than it is about helping. But I landed in a pretty good gig. Colorado National Bank, big bank in downtown Denver, and they had a 3 or 4 we sold mutual funds and annuities and sold a lot of bonds in those days, tax-exempt bonds, Colorado tax-exempt bonds. And it was pretty neat because every week we got a list of maturing CDs. So you had plenty of people to call up and go, you want to learn a little more interest on your CDs? So it was a nice gig until I, got my wild hair and went to talk to John Elway Toyota. I like selling cars. I ended up selling cars and trucks for a long time. Sold for Elway Toyota for a while, and then I moved back to Las Vegas and got on there with a Chevy dealership. But I was working on the commercial side, selling, white pickup trucks. Sold a lot of white pickup trucks, medium-duty trucks, which is enjoyable. I like selling to businesses a lot more. Plus, you get regular companies. You got the local garbage guys call you up 3-4 times a month and need more pickup trucks.
Right.
And then this guy who was our rep for upfitting trucks, bodies and stuff on the back of trucks, he goes, I got a dealership in Sacramento that needs a guy. So I spent a couple of years working for a GMC dealership in Sacramento. They were pretty much a heavy truck dealership, Peterbilts and that kind of stuff. But I was handling the medium-duty GMCs. I wasn't even selling pickups at that point, just medium-duty trucks. And my wife, who I'm still married to, but we're separated, her parents are German. They're both in the German army in World War II, but they owned a coffee plantation in Mexico. So she was born in Mexico and grew up in Mexico. Soon before I met, when did I meet her? 2001, 2002, something like that. But a friend introduced us. Probably the same guy that got me the job in Sacramento, but it might have been. But they had sold a coffee plantation, so they had a bunch of money. And one of her sisters had moved to Uruguay and talked the parents into going to Uruguay. And we went down to visit. I go, this is pretty cool. I think we can move here. So worked up a business plan for a little business idea down there and moved down there and ended up staying for 6 years in Montevideo, Uruguay.
That's cool.
Beat the heck out of your microphone.
Oh, that's fine.
I really enjoyed it. The thing is, if you're expat, eventually you go back. Everybody goes back, except for the British. The British can expat forever, but none of the rest of us can. But I enjoyed that. And my wife got offered a job at a resort in Lake Tahoe, so that's how we ended up in Northern Nevada. And came back up, and I thought for sure I was going to just go sell Toyota somewhere in Carson City. And I'd been writing in South America. I'd been making money by writing online content. It was a time when you could actually write online content and get paid. These companies, they just have list of titles, and you'd pick them out and then you'd write up your reports. And for me, it was good. They all went to an editor, and the editor would, say, okay, you need to change this and this and send it back, and you'd fix it. And if you didn't fix it, you didn't get paid. So I learned how to write pretty well
There you go.
for publishing stuff, and made enough money to live in Montevideo in a little apartment and live a pretty good life. And at that time, I'd been writing also for Seeking Alpha. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's a big stock market website. They have lots and lots of independent writers writing for them. And they started paying for stuff. So I was writing for them, and I'd been back in the States probably less than 6 months when I got contacted by this guy. He goes, I work for this other guy that has done financial publishing, but mostly he helps other publishers promote their own newsletters. And he wants to start his own newsletter. And we'd like to talk to you about being our first newsletter writer. And that was in 2014. And we launched our first newsletter in June of 2014. Okay. And it's
11 years ago.
Yeah. Took a while to get going, probably 3-4 years of, not making a lot of money, but built up, subscriber base and built up what we were doing. And the last 4 or 5 years have been excellent financially. Plus I love it. I interact with my subscribers. They seem to like me a lot. I get a lot of compliments either by email or other sources about how I've helped them save their retirement. I've had a couple in the past few weeks from guys that go, I've tried every newsletter out there and yours is the best. And I go, hey, thanks.
So you were explaining before we started, it's a written newsletter, but it's on a specific website.
Yeah.
And they're all posted there.
Yeah. We have quite a few newsletter services now, but if you subscribe to one, you get access to all. We have tons of content for subscribers, just tons of content. Typically, there's a monthly newsletter. There's a bunch of special reports about that newsletter. A lot of things we have in there for new subscribers, like the first 5 stocks to buy if you subscribe, so they get involved in it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they subscribe, and I don't have anything to do with marketing. We got guys that write, marketing copy, and it's all email based marketing, which is a business that's struggling these days. The last few months have been tough, when the markets get ugly. Although we added a lot of subscribers during the pandemic crash.
Oh, I bet.
Because people wanted to know what the heck they were doing. And that's the same time we went to a lot of audio and video stuff. So I could be more immediate with people. And
And not only immediate, but I view that as being a little more personal, because you were telling me about how you get your questions during the week, and then you'll compile those, and then you make a video on Friday mornings addressing
every
all those?
Friday morning I just sit in front of my webcam and read the questions and answer them. And, because get a lot of the same questions over and over again. So it keeps me from writing a lot of emails, and it helps people learn. And
I think they like to hear somebody talking and looking them eye to eye in the camera, as
yeah.
opposed to
Well,
just giving them written.
I have subscribers
resources.
go, on Friday, the thing comes out like late on Friday afternoons. And they go, yeah, my wife and I, we get our drinks together, we get ready. That's kind of the highlight of our early Friday evening, is sit and watch the mailbag video.
And that you make every Friday?
Every Friday.
Addressing the questions?
Yeah.
About how many questions on the average do you get per week that you actually
I had
address?
6 pages this morning.
So how long is your video?
55 minutes.
It's a lot of information in 55 minutes.
Yes. For a long, typically, historically, they've run about an hour. When the markets are doing good, they tend to be a lot shorter, because people, I love humans. If the market's doing well, I don't get a lot of complaints. There's always a couple, what do I call them, drama queens in our investments. You can't recommend 40 investments and not have some of them go stupid, is my technical term.
Right.
And we got one that's really stupid right now. So it's, there's not a lot of information about it. And so a lot of questions about that one, but I get a lot of people, and there's a lot of interaction. Like somebody wrote in last week ago, okay, what websites are good for getting dividend information? So I put it out there. So this week I got 2 or 3 answers of people go, this is what I like to use for dividend information. So there's a lot of sharing that way with stuff.
So when your newsletter comes out, are there portions in the newsletter that point to the information you already have on the website, just so they can read up more on a certain subject?
It's the way the member areas are set up. There's just a list of categories. Like the top one is newsletters. So you click on that, you can read the latest or not, other new, like in my January and July newsletters are full of a lot of good basic financial planning stuff. So I'll a lot of times point people to that. They go, how do I allocate my money and how do I do this stuff? I go, go read the June one or January one or the July one, whichever's recent. And then we have a portfolio. I have a recommended portfolio. Then there's our special report section where we got, we talk about like what are preferred stocks. I have one subscriber, he does the tax characteristics of everything in the portfolio. He does a spreadsheet and we make it available to all subscribers, and he just does it on his own.
Wow.
And other special reports about stuff. And then, there's the mailbag video, there's other videos. Fortunately, at this point in time, we're pretty good about getting outside people to come in and do webinars for subscribers. People that run mutual fund companies, run ETF companies, or run other types of businesses. There's a company out of Las Vegas called Ignite Funding, and they do first deed trust investing. They loan money to developers. And their loans, they just very structured. If you invest in a loan, it's $10,000 minimum. The loan's for 9 months, and at the discretion of the borrower, they can extend it for 9 months. And they pay 10% interest paid monthly. And they're just good people. Mm-hmm. So Kate's my rep down there. I get her in a couple times a year just to talk to subscribers about what they do, because it's another way to make money with your money. And we've managed, there's an ETF company out of New York. They run a couple really income-focused ETFs, and we've become friends with the guy that runs it and stuff. I was on his webinar on Wednesday. Jay wants you to be the guest on our monthly webinar. And I go, sure. So I was on their webinar on Wednesday. And
Cool.
yeah, so I speak at their investor conference is called Money Show. Before the pandemic, there were lots of them, and lots of people went. Since the pandemic, they do them in Orlando in November and Las Vegas in February. And I've been speaking at those for years. Just they put me in a little room with some people. I'm about done with that. I hope Debbie doesn't hear this. My contact there. But they've started these other ones, a different type of show that I spoke at the one in Dallas a couple of months ago, and I'm going to speak at the one in Las Vegas in July because it's a little more fun for me. But it's different from their regular money show. I forget what they call it, but I enjoy it so far. But I've been doing this long. It doesn't bring any business to me, but the other side of it is I get in front of a lot of investors. Usually I have pretty good number of subscribers that show up and want to say hi, and some of them buy me a drink. And
Sure. So what is the name of your website? How can people find it?
The website's called Investors Alley. My primary newsletter is called The Dividend Hunter.
So investorsalley.com.
Investorsalley.com.
Okay.
And for sign-up stuff, you can go to if you want to get around a lot. I mean, this is the email marketing world. They go, 40-page long marketing copy. And they keep telling me it works. And I go, okay, I ain't reading it. But investorsalley.com/the dividend hunter will take you straight to a sign-up page. And I think it's $79 for the first year. And
Not too bad.
we give a 1-year money-back guarantee.
Yep.
If after a year you go, I didn't learn anything from this, we'll give your money back. So, and then we have more expensive products that get into more advanced strategies and stuff. Dividend Hunters, it's all high yield stuff. Figured this, for me anyway, it works. We're investing for an income stream. We own REITs and business development companies and ETFs and things that pay attractive yields. And what we want to do is see our dividend income stable to growing, because we don't know where share price is going to go, but we know what dividends are going to be paid, plus or minus a little bit. And average yield is about 10% there too. So just earn your 10%, keep reinvesting those dividends, and your income will grow by 10% a year. And when you get ready to hit retirement age, you just turn on the dividends. You don't end, I have subscribers that'll go to like traditional financial advisors, and then they'll share with me what the financial advisor recommended. It's pretty interesting. But, and I was a certified financial planner. I know how all this stuff, but the traditional thing is like 60-40, 60% stocks, 40% bonds, and you can withdraw 4% a year. That's the basic advice. And they adjust that a little bit, but 4% is not very much. Like I tell people, we're earning 10% at Dividend Hunter. You can draw 6 or 7% and still leave some to reinvest and grow your income. So you can get more income than the guy down at Schwab is going to tell you can have. And the 60-40 plan, withdrawing 40%, if you look at historical numbers, you got a 20% chance of running out of money before you die, which means you're going to run out of money when it really sucks.
Yeah. And who knows, you might be sitting in a nursing home by then, too.
Exactly. So I think my stuff works.
Yeah.
And I got that fighter pilot shit going on. People seem to like it.
Faster and funnier.
Yeah. Well, one of my subscribers wrote in the mailbag thing today, I guess the Netflix is coming out with a Thunderbirds video on sometime later in May.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen the Blue Angel one. I think it was on Amazon Prime or maybe one of those streaming services. The Blue Angel one is pretty cool. Because it shows about the training program, the off season and what these guys go through.
Right.
And I'm just having a blast because, as I said, these guys don't fly close formation anymore. So you get these guys, they're F-18 pilots, they know how to fly jets, but they're not used to tucking in. Wow, that thing's going to kill me. They're not used to tucking in tight, I could tuck in as tight as I wanted to when I flew jets because we flew close formation a lot. These guys don't. So it's fun to watch these guys learn how to get in close and fly that close formation these performance teams do.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of operating a lot of sophisticated avionics nowadays. So it's turned that way a little more.
Oh yeah, this former Marine pilot, now guard pilot we were talking to, they have data links. You're data linked to everybody in your flight. He's telling me, yeah, it's going up with a new guy. We're doing BFM, basic fighter maneuvers. It's basically just one-on-one dogfighting.
Right.
And he goes, the guys go, my data link doesn't work. My data link doesn't work. And he goes, we're doing BFM. We don't need a bloody data link. If you lose sight of me, it's because I'm behind you.
Oops. Oh man.
But you know, they're so locked into their technology to a certain extent.
Right.
And,
right.
You know, and I love hearing the guys. I hear them, you know, from my house taking off and coming back in, and I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, I accepted what's called the key volunteer position for the wing. They call it the little wing. Yeah. For all the shops that fall directly under the wing, and it gets me out there. I always went out for the Finney flights, for the pilots' retirements, for everybody. But now volunteering with the family volunteer group and some of the deployment and return deployment celebrations and things like that. So I really enjoy going back for the social part of it. And from what you were talking earlier, you really enjoyed the social part of your
very much
your active duty as well.
And, you know, and now it's Air Force Academy stuff, classmate stuff. You know, I get to do things with classmates regularly.
Reunions?
Well, yeah, well, the 50th is still away. This summer we're doing something interesting.
Okay.
It's 50 years since we showed up at the Air Force Academy.
Right.
So the class of 29 is coming in this summer. We're the class of 79. So 50 years apart. So we're having, I guess there's like a dozen guys in my class that have signed up to kind of be there when the new cadets come in and get in process and all that stuff, to talk to them, talk to their families. So my roommate, Randy, he's honchoing it. And I go, okay, Randy, I'm coming out. We'll have some fun.
Yeah,
and
that'd be cool.
Pissed him off yesterday. We got this thing from some gal at the at the academy in charge of, because it's all like a big event now. I mean, parents go, you know how it is when kids go to school now. The parents go, everybody goes, you know. And like I said, I got put on an airplane, but she sends out these things. Okay, you're signed up for this, and you need to wear spirit gear. And one of my classmates writes back and goes, "What's spirit gear?" Well, like a
bling,
like a polo shirt for the Air Force Academy and a hat or something. And I sent a thing. I go, well, I have my LCWB polo shirt. Will that work? Last class with balls.
Oh, there you go.
And Randy sent me back a private message. He goes, we're not doing that. And I go, I know, Randy. I was just messing around.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool. So you've lived a lot of life. And,
I have,
and you're still going. You're saying you got your retirement plan of whenever, but you're not.
I'm not. Really, I love what I'm doing. I really, really love what I'm doing. And you know, I got 2 households to support, so that helps.
Keeps you moving.
Yeah, you know, the house in Nevada, I pay for most of the expenses for that, but that's fine. I can. So yeah, life is good. And, you know, and the thing is, I've done a lot of dumb things in life, but I think I've learned from them. I think a lot of that experience has come together. Took me a long, long time to get here, but what has come together is a guy that has a lot of knowledge about what to do and what not to do. So, and I like sharing it with people, and fortunately I get to.
Yep. Knowledge comes with experience.
Yeah, yeah, and
sometimes good decisions, sometimes bad.
Yeah, well, that's
that's how we learn.
I mean, I have so much fun with subscribers that get angry at me. You know, they go, well, "You should have known this would happen." I go, "Man, I just suck at predicting the future."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they can't. You got a lot of information, but not that kind. So.
Yeah, it's always like at the start of the year, all these gurus come out and the financial networks predicting the next recession, like every year. It's every year they're going to predict a recession. And they go, I'm just not that good at predicting the future. You can listen to them if you want, or hang out with me, we'll make some money.
Yep. Name of the game.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, I think we covered
You've run through my whole
a
life.
lot of stuff. So is
You know,
there anything?
unless you want to go back to bullhead fishing in Algona, Iowa.
Oh, that, hobbies as a kid. And do you have any hobbies now?
All right. I had a best friend in Algona, and we loved fishing and shooting and going to the swimming pool. Bought my first .22 rifle when I was 10 years old. Got a paper route. So I had my own .22 rifle when I was 10 years old. We'd carry them on the handlebars of our bicycles around town. And, God, I gotta love the 60s. And go out to the gravel pit and shoot stuff.
Sure.
And Algona sits in a big loop in the Des Moines River. So we'd take our bikes, we could bike down there and stay overnight and go fishing and catch bullheads. And there's a lot of good fishing around there. So we did a lot of that. Later in life, I got a good dog now. I like shooting. Still, I'm not a hunter. My brothers are hardcore hunters, but I like shooting. I like guns. Kind of living just a pretty good life in Sioux Falls right now. Really happy with my life. I came out here for a specific romantic reason that hasn't evolved to where I wanted to, but the fact that I landed in Sioux Falls and love my life here makes it easy to put up with whatever that is going to be.
Yep. Can't predict that either. Can you?
No. God, I've known this woman since I was in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
But, we'll figure it out. And,
Sure.
But the part is I'm just really happy with my life in Sioux Falls. Love the city. Happy I landed here. Got work to do. Got a dog that keeps me really busy. He's an 11-month-old Australian Shepherd.
Oh, my word.
Yeah, so he's finally settling down.
Uh-huh.
But so I enjoy my life very much so.
Glad to hear it.
And I get to meet people like you and the Pluckers, and meeting Steve and Emily has just been a great boon to my life because I'm helping them out with some financial stuff, just teaching, so they learn how to do things.
But the Pluckers, they just live a couple miles over here.
Yeah.
And when we travel, they watch the horses for us and feed the animals and things. So,
but they're just super people. And I met, she was coaching at Orange Theory Fitness, the fitness thing.
Yeah.
That's where I met her. Well, she's so bloody smart. She didn't realize how smart she is. She doesn't. But I see it. And they're just the nicest people.
Yep.
And Seth graduates and he's going to go work with his dad, or at the same place anyway.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You bet.
Talking to Steve last Saturday, I goes, how's work slowing down? He goes, yeah, we're down to 70 hours a week.
Yeah. The farmers are pretty busy around here.
Yeah.
Pretty busy.
So, yeah. But I'm happy. Just good people. I take my dog out there and let them run with their dogs. But, and I've met some good people in Sioux Falls.
Well, good deal. And we just met. Like I said, I had your name on the list for about a year. Your name was mentioned to me, and we met at the graduation last Saturday. So here we are. Appreciate you coming in and doing this.
Yeah, if you ever put anything together where you got a couple fighter pilots and we can back and forth or something. Get a Navy guy in here.
We've had some Navy pilots come in to fly 16s for a while and then retired out of there. So, different services have been coming in and doing that. So.
Yeah, the best fights, because in Nellis, when Red Flag was on, obviously there's bunches of fighters there to do Red Flag, but they're not flying all the time. So we'd get guys that come down and, we'd set up 2v2s most of the time. And the F-18s are so much fun to fight, so much fun. And then one day, got a F-15s, pair of F-15s. And the guy, the flight lead, was a classmate of mine from the academy. And we'd been in a squadron together at the academy, and I knew him. And it was his flight lead upgrade in the F-15. And I just kicked his ass. We kicked him so bad. Because, we flew against the fighter weapons school and all these guys all the time, and if you're sitting somewhere in some podunk Air Force base, you just don't get that kind of experience. And so that was... He probably doesn't remember it.
He doesn't want to remember it, probably.
But
all
right, great
Tim.
times. Yes.
Well, thank you very much. It was great meeting you.
Yeah.
You bet.
We'll see you around the neighborhood here, since now I know two people are living here.
There you go. All right. Thanks again, man.
All right. This is great.
Thanks for watching. Saw you moving around a little bit there. Yeah, that's why I make sure I mention ahead of time if you need to adjust or just need a break.
I didn't really notice it until I just stood up just now. What time have we got? 7:30?
Yeah.
So we run about 2 hours?
Yeah.
Maybe a little less?
Yeah, a little less than that, I think.
Heck, I thought I had more stories.